second speaker is Fahima Ahmadi. Fahima was born in Iran, but she is an Asara from Afghanistan, and she has been campaigning for fair treatment of refugees fleeing the Taliban and for those living in Australia who are treated as second-class citizens. She knows firsthand the dislocation, separation from family, and the challenges of the refugee experience, and we are privileged to hear from her today. Please welcome Fahima.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we have gathered here today and pay my respect to their elders past, present and emerging. I wish I wasn't here today. I wish I wasn't here today and I was celebrating diversity in Australia. I wish I was witnessing a fair Australia for all. But I am here today because I have to raise my concern about my people and my community. Today, we have gathered to show our support and stand up with our fellow refugee friends who are going through a hard time. As a refugee from Afghanistan, I saw the world's ignorance to the crisis in my country. Yet, I am surprised by the amount of support and attention I see to the current situation of Ukraine. Yes, war is happening in Ukraine, but not only there. Yes, Ukrainians are going through a tough time, and it is Australia's obligation to immediately accept refugees from Ukraine and help them. But there are other people, like the refugees of Afghanistan, who also needed and still need Australia's help. As a Hazara refugee, I felt offended by this systemic government. I felt offended when I saw the media coverage about Ukraine, where journalists were saying that the war in Ukraine is not like the Middle Eastern countries like Iraq and Afghanistan that has seen conflicts raging for decades. This is a civilized, relatively European country. I didn't choose to be from Afghanistan. My people didn't choose to immigrate to other countries. My people didn't choose to have war in their country and witness the deaths of their loved ones. My people didn't choose the way they look and the way they speak. But this government, the Scott Morrison government, did choose to dehumanize us, to lock us in detention centers, to not help and raise our voice when we needed them, to imprison us with temporary protection visas, to see us suffering from mental health issues, to separate fathers from their families for more than a decade, and to discriminate us by the delay in immigration processes so that they could ensure that we are not terrorists. But why? Is it only because we are not white? Is it only because we are not European and we are from a third world country? Is it only because the decision to destroy my country was by a US president, not a Russian one? There are a lot of problems with this government. There are a lot of problems with this government. For instance, this government's temporary protection visa is ridiculous because it is denying thousands of people with a recognized need for protection and the chance to build their lives in Australia. Another problem with this system is that the Australian government is paying other countries to keep refugees in limbos and detention centres. The current average monthly cost to Australian taxpayer for every refugee and asylum seeker held in Nauru escalated from more than $358,646 or $4.3 million per year. Imagine how this money is being wasted to just keep those refugees in detention centres because they fled from war. And just imagine that the money could have been invested into the Australian community by refugees taking up and creating jobs and generating returns in Australia. Recently, Scott Morrison made an announcement to cover up his failure. He said that they're going to provide 16,500 visas over 4 years for the refugees of Afghanistan. Well, the Taliban are killing my people right now who need and deserve help. There are human beings' lives that are being used to win votes. In a speech by Mr. Morrison, he said that sorry is not the hardest word to say. The hardest is I forgive you. And I am truly agree with this statement, and my community, the people of Afghanistan, will never forgive this government for their irrational policies. We will not forgive this government because we are in pain, because we witnessed the suicide of young men in detention centers, because we saw our community members deporting themselves since they had temporary visas and they couldn't tolerate anymore to see their families. Because we witnessed fathers who couldn't see their children's childhood and they missed the first walk, the first word their child said, and the first birthdays of their children, just because of these policies implementations. We will not forgive this government because we saw discrimination in this system where we need to wait more than a decade to be accepted and to obtain an identity as an Australian citizen. We will not forgive them for their silence during the crisis in my country. We will not forgive them for hearing our concern and using us as a toy to gain power. Currently, the situation in Afghanistan is horrible. Children are being sold and women are being restricted again. People from Hazara ethnicity, women, and vulnerable citizens are being targeted by the Taliban. Community members from Afghanistan who are in Australia are concerned about their families back home. People with temporary protection visas do not have the right to sponsor their families back home because they do not have permanent residency. People in detention facilities are being silenced due to the lack of media coverage. We didn't start the war, but we were the ones who paid for it. To the cost of immigrating to a country with no common language and culture. To the cost of sacrificing our lives in broken boats because we thought that the boat is safer than our homeland. To the cost of family separation and leaving our memories, childhood, and our motherland and ending up with only one bag on our shoulders. Australia, we can do better and we must take action. We can be a voice. We can be a voice and hold the government responsible to change the policies. Refugees who are in detention centers and those who are living with temporary protection visas deserve a life free from any discrimination and persecution. Thank you.